I received a call that my beloved and kind Mill was urgently taken to the hospital. What's going on? She was perfectly fine just yesterday. When I rushed to the hospital, I found my Mill's condition to be worse than expected. I need to contact my husband, so I dialed his cell. Then, I heard a ringtone coming from inside my purse. My husband's cell wasn't there. It seems his cell accidentally ended up in my bag. What should do? As I was thinking this and picked up the phone, I saw it. The reason my Mill collapsed was because of something my husband did. I'm a married woman in my early 30s. I'd been working as an employee even after getting married. But since my company allows remote work, I switched to working from home when I got pregnant. I plan to take a break around the birth, but intend to continue working while raising the child. Fortunately, my husband's parents support my decision. They believe in a modern approach to a woman's life, evolving with the times rather than sticking to old customs. That's why I have a great relationship with my in-laws. Since we live close to my in-laws, my Mill often comes over out of concern for my well-being. My husband during our dating period was supportive, agreeing that women's advancement in society should be encouraged. Having such an understanding husband was ideal, so when he proposed, it was the best moment of my life. But once we got married and started our life together, he did a complete 180. Even though we both work, he believes household chores are a woman's job, and sharing them equally is out of the question. I might understand if he earned more than me, but our salaries are nearly the same. Since neither of us is likely to get a raise soon, shouldn't it be equal? He's adamant that household chores are a woman's job, and there's no reasoning with him. Being treated this way just because I'm a woman is utterly unfair. If we both gave up, our house would quickly become a mess. So I reluctantly give in, which should have settled the matter. But even though he insists chores are a woman's job, he criticizes how I do them. He's no expert in housework, yet how can someone who does nothing understand it? He should at least try doing something before complaining. I fought that, but there's no use saying it to someone I see every day who has no intention of changing. I just nodded and tried to ignore him. I thought my ill health was due to this stress, but just to be sure, I went to the doctor and found out I was pregnant. It turns out I have severe morning sickness, and cooking was the hardest part. Yet, my husband just says, I'm tired from work. He says, I'm the head of this household, and just lounges around. When I try to lie down to ease my discomfort, he says, pregnancy isn't an illness. It's natural for a woman to be pregnant. Don't use this as an excuse to be lazy and play the woman card. Instead of helping, he insists on me doing more. I keep doing the chores, trying not to be noticed by my husband. After a while, he starts eating out more often, saying he's busy with work. Honestly, I don't care what the reason is. I find relief in the increased time he spends away from home. I hope that once my health improves, he'll return to the kind man he once was. This is the first child for both of us. He might be feeling anxious about becoming a father. I try to understand that I might be the only person he can express his worries to. Ever since I got pregnant, my Mill has been really caring, always coming to help on weekends. She understands the hardships of early pregnancy, sympathizes with my struggles, and even prepares meals that last for days. It's baffling how such kind in-laws raised my husband, who acts so unreasonably. But then, one day, my self-centered husband suddenly became kind. I'm sorry I couldn't understand before. A colleague of mine was complaining about her pregnancy struggles, and that's when I finally got it. He gently touched my belly and handed me some aromatherapy oil that's supposed to help with pregnancy worries. If I wasn't feeling hungry, he suggested cinnamon rolls and gave me those too. Our child is important, so I'll start helping out more, he said, embracing me. Though it's not exactly the help I wanted, I'm genuinely happy he's trying to change. I'm usually sensitive to smells, and scents like hair fresheners or fabric softeners are too much for me. The aroma oil is especially too strong, and despite his thoughtfulness, I just can't use it. I also can't stand the smell of cinnamon, and foods with cinnamon in them are a no-go for me. He strongly urged me to use the oil during the day tomorrow. But I can't use it because of the smell, and when I left it untouched, he questioned me harshly about why it hadn't decreased. Every day when he comes home, he checks how much oil is left. I felt bad about throwing away the cinnamon rolls. So when my Mill happened to visit, I had her eat them, managing to deceive him for now. But my husband, pleased with himself, started bringing cinnamon rolls home every few days. I explained to my Mill about his daily checks and how he gets upset when it's obvious I'm not using the oil. Thankfully, my Mill agreed to take care of the cinnamon rolls for me. I've been pretending to use the aromatherapy oil, gradually reducing the amount in the bottle. I transfer some into another container and give it to my Mill as a decoy. Every day, my husband checks if I'm using the aroma oil or asks which bakery's cinnamon rolls are the best. When I told this to my Mill, she shared her farts on the cinnamon rolls she ate, and I relayed them to my husband as if they were my own. Since it's my Mill who's actually eating them, it only makes sense for her to get them from her favorite bakery. With my Mill's covert help, our marital relationship is showing signs of improvement. Then one day, my husband brought home cookies from a colleague, asking me to try them instead. My husband said that a female co-worker, who is also pregnant, gave him the cookies as a thank you for listening to her pregnancy troubles. He's not fond of sweets, so he wanted me to eat them and share my farts. He listened to his coworker's concerns, but didn't he fail to empathize with his own wife? It's a mixed feeling, but I guess him understanding my struggles came from those conversations. I thought it best to comply to keep his mood up. However, I'd been trying to limit sweets due to weight concerns. I'm tempted to have just a bite, but I'm afraid it might trigger a rebound from all the restraint I've been practicing. When I discussed this with my Mill, she offered to take the cookies just like she did with the cinnamon rolls, so I gratefully accepted her offer. I explained that my husband wants feedback on the cookies. My Mill happily agreed to send me a message with her farts after trying them. However, my husband quickly asked for my opinion on the cookies. It's impossible to give feedback the very next day. I carefully chose my words to avoid offending him, and told him I hadn't had a chance to eat them today. He then urged me to eat them soon, as they wouldn't last long. My mother-in-law had messaged me that she couldn't eat today but would eat tomorrow. The next day, while I was working and waiting for a message from her, I received a call from the hospital she was rushed to. I rushed to the hospital. The person who rode in the ambulance with her introduced themselves as her friend. They said she had become unsteady and fell while at lunch. She was currently undergoing treatment and was in critical condition, unconscious. It took me a few seconds to process the situation as my mind went blank. I had to contact my husband and father-in-law, so I pulled out my smartphone from my purse. Then, I saw a message from my Mill saying she ate some cookies, and that they weren't very tasty. She had eaten them before meeting a friend, and even sent her opinion. I was touched by my Mill's thoughtfulness, but I couldn't stop regretting making her rush so much that she became unsteady. Until then, I had assumed she became unsteady because she rushed to meet her friend after taking time to eat for my sake. First, I needed to contact my husband and father-in-law, so I called my husband's cell phone. But strangely, the ringtone of my husband's cell phone came from my purse. Puzzled, I peered into my purse and found my husband's phone. This morning, in his rush to leave for work, it seemed he had accidentally put his phone in my purse. Wondering what to do, I picked up his phone and saw a message from someone else. It simply read, "Did you eat? How was it?" I assumed it was a female co-worker asking about his opinion on the cookies. But if it was a co-worker, couldn't she have just asked him directly? If they were close enough to commiserate about the struggles of pregnancy, there seemed no need to send a message. A sense of unease stirred in me, and I became curious about the preceding messages. I wanted to believe my husband was not involved, but what if a female coworker had feelings for him? Once the thought occurred, I couldn't stop worrying, and despite feeling guilty, I looked through his phone. Then I discovered a shocking truth far beyond my imagination. Realizing the severity of the situation, I approached a nurse emerging from the treatment room, saying, "My Mill might have ingested something harmful." Hearing my loud voice, a doctor inside asked the nurse to find out what harmful substance it might be. As tense moments passed, all I could do was pray. But I made sure to preserve the shocking truth from my husband's phone by taking a photo with my camera as evidence. My husband and father-in-law arrived at the hospital one after the other. I told my husband, "Your mom ate the cookies you gave me yesterday." He suddenly became distraught. "This is bad. Mom might never wake up. Why didn't you eat them? They were prepared for you." I gave him a puzzled look. I already knew about it from the exchange on his phone. "Why is Mom in critical condition, and you're still alive and well, damn it?" My father-in-law was shocked by this statement. "What do you mean? What did you do?" he demanded. My husband realized he had accidentally let something slip and desperately tried to make excuses, but they were quite unconvincing. My father-in-law sensed this and did not ease up his questioning. Then, the attending doctor arrived, saying, "We managed to save her life," which halted my father-in-law's pursuit. My husband let out a sigh of relief, as if he had narrowly escaped a crisis. We received an explanation from the doctor that she would need to stay in the hospital for a while. I said I would handle the necessary paperwork for my mother-in-law's hospital admission, and stepped out of the hospital. Meanwhile, I secretly hired a private detective and a lawyer. My mother-in-law recovered smoothly and was set to be discharged earlier than expected. When I got back home, relatives who had been hesitant to visit her in the hospital came to celebrate her discharge. They said things like, "It was such a shock when we heard, but it's great she's recovered now." My husband, who had been with his mother, seemed to have let his guard down in this relaxed atmosphere. He carelessly blurted out, "It's all because my wife fed my mom something weird. I married a terrible woman." Indeed, I regret giving my mother-in-law those cookies, unaware of my husband's sinister intentions. But that doesn't mean I deserve to be blamed for handing them over without knowing their contents. I snapped back. I was avoiding sweets due to pregnancy weight restrictions. My food preferences changed during pregnancy, and you kept insisting I ate without asking. A female relative nodded emphatically in agreement. It's something perhaps only those who have experienced it can understand. Then, my husband, infuriated by my retort, lunged at me, raising his arm to hit me. Instinctively, a relative shielded me, while another restrained my husband. My restrained husband, infuriated at being stopped, blurted out, "Planning to feed my mom cookies with Lily of the Valley. What a heartless woman." I immediately asked him how he knew the cookies contained Lily of the Valley. One relative, aware of the toxicity of Lily of the Valley, looked at my husband with disdain. Then they explained about Lily of the Valley, making it clear what my husband had planned. Whether it was anger at his plan being exposed or just an attempt to deflect, he became uncontrollably violent. Unable to handle him, a relative called the police, and he was apprehended and taken away by the officers. Though it was an attempt, the clear intent to harm meant my husband faced a serious investigation. During the investigation, my husband also admitted to having an affair. I had suspected it was with a female co-worker, but it turned out he didn't have any close female colleagues at all. He had fabricated the existence of a close female colleague to cover up his affair. The woman he was involved with was someone he met at a bar, and he apparently complained about me to her. Despite him being the sole breadwinner and not contributing at all at home, he had a habit of wasteful spending. Believing his story, the woman sympathized with him, and they became intimately involved. She confessed that she continued the affair, knowing he was married, because she thought he was a high earner who could support the household and handle my supposed wastefulness while still affording to go out for drinks. Around the same time I got pregnant, the other woman was also pregnant. Then, her greed surfaced, and she started seeing my presence as a nuisance. She decided she only wanted the child in her womb to be my husband's. First, she planned to deal with the child in my womb, and then with me. The exchanges on my husband's phone became crucial evidence. From what I saw, he was advising her that clary sage essential oil is contraindicated for pregnant women, so she should make me inhale it daily. He also suggested making me eat cinnamon daily since it's not good for pregnant women. Unaware that I have a sensitive nose and dislike such scents, my husband naively believed his mistress and kept gifting them to me. However, when the child in my womb didn't miscarry, they altered their plan to eliminate both the child and me. His mistress, who had hobbies in aromatherapy and gardening, used her knowledge to devise the plan. She chose lily of the valley, a naturally occurring plant, and mixed it into the cookie dough. The toxicity of lily of the valley is several times more potent than that of well-known poisons. Even rubbing eyes with hands that have touched lily of the valley can have an effect. There are not a few cases of children accidentally touching wild lily of the valley and suffering harm. Thus, the entire plot devised by my husband and his mistress came to light. After further investigation and corroboration, they are likely to be prosecuted. Despite being an attempt, the premeditated nature of their plan makes a prison sentence seem certain. I heard the mistress spewing bitterness towards my husband, blaming his lies and pretenses. She regrets believing his exaggerated stories. From my perspective, working in a bar, she should have known better than to take a customer's words at face value. Since she continued the relationship even knowing it was an affair, the mistress bears her share of responsibility. I divorced my husband and filed for compensation from both him and his mistress. My in-laws sincerely apologized to me, despite also being victims of their son's actions. They offered to help with the upbringing expenses for their grandchild, if I didn't mind. As for me, I felt nothing but gratitude towards my in-laws. And I even thought I had inadvertently caused my mother-in-law great distress. I'll never see my ex-husband again, but I hope to maintain a close relationship with my in-laws. Later, I gave birth to a healthy child. After the divorce, I returned to my parents' home and have their agreement to help me raise the child. I took a short maternity leave from work and have stepped away from the office, but I will continue with remote work. I look forward to enjoying my child's growth and living life with a forward-looking attitude. Right now, I feel the most fulfilled and happy.